Welcome to the January 26th meeting of the Facility Committee. I call the meeting to order. Needed a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is we need a motion to approve the December 16th open session meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the December minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up is Informational CIP Intro, Mr. Burnett.
Yes, thank you. So we are getting ready to start the CIP process and development and approvals. Typically, what we do is between now and the next Facilities Committee meeting in February, we would meet with Facilities Committee members, 2 by 2s, and our office, or we can do that virtually. So, just giving a heads up that we'll be trying to contact folks to try to get those scheduled. The approval process and schedule is that we would hope to bring to the Facilities Committee in March a good draft CIP, and that at that meeting that would get hopefully approved and forwarded to the Board of Education for their April meeting. And that's the CIP intro.
Thank you. Next item is the annual report. Sorry, no mic.
Yeah, so in your packet is the spreadsheet. This is we bring it to the Facilities Committee for information. It does go to the Board of Education in their consent agenda. No action is required by this board, but it is for information.
Can you remind me, I know you've told us this before, it's been a while though, where the proceeds go for these sold items, where they're held, where the money's held?
Sure, and Shauna might want to speak to that, but it goes to the district. It's not going to specific to facilities or anything like that. It's to the district.
Okay, thank you.
So it doesn't go back to where, that doesn't seem right.
Seems like it should at least-
Right, it should go back to facilities.
So what normally happens when not all the items that are sold are facilities items. So all the proceeds are collected, they're recorded as revenue. Any federally funded items that get sold go back to those particular programs due to federal rules. A lot of times when there are a large number of pieces of equipment, I do work with facilities to reallocate those proceeds back to them so they can purchase replacement equipment when necessary.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? Nope. Next up is residential development review, Mr. Oak.
Good morning. This is a short presentation for which I've provided a lot of data. The data is in the board docs, and I'll run through a little bit of explanation as to what that data entails. As a little bit of background, we currently have more than 1,000 identified subdivision developments in Union County. About 170 of these are in some stage of planning or building, and that number obviously goes up and down as subdivisions are either completed or planned and brought online. You'll see a couple of terms that I've got in the charts. One, planning, when a subdivision is considered in planning. That means a developer has submitted an application. We have found out either through the planner at the county or the municipality that the subdivision has made application. And when that happens, it lands on my map and stays on my radar. Just because a subdivision is in planning obviously does not mean approval is necessarily forthcoming, so it may or may not happen. And then the final term, building, you'll also see me refer to that as active. That means approval has been received and physical work has begun on the site. That could be as simple as just initial clearing of the site, and that's when I would consider it active or in building phase. We have reason to believe that it's going to come online when we hit that point. The data I've provided in board docs, there's a large PDF map of the entire county showing the subdivisions that are either active or in planning. I intentionally made it quite large so that you could zoom into various areas and get detail anywhere in the county. There's a spreadsheet of all the active or in planning developments, the 170 that I mentioned before, and they're sorted by cluster and elementary school. There's a spreadsheet of school capacities and 20th day enrollments. These are the Cropper capacities. I believe the only one that has changed since Mr. Cropper did his analysis was Sun Valley High School, and that's because of the addition that we completed there. I've given graphs for what I consider schools of interest. That is schools that are at 100% plus or minus a little bit, schools that we want to keep an eye on. You'll see in the graphs that Dr. McKibben's forecast has those enrollments decreasing over time. But we're going to still keep those as schools of interest. We have a lot of trust in Dr. McKibben, but he has been known to be wrong on rare occasion. So we will keep a close eye on the schools of interest. There are also graphs for schools of concern. These are schools that are above 100% capacity currently, and based on the McKibben forecast, we don't think are going to drop below 100% anytime soon. Why is it a school of concern? Well, we may have to do something. And I've included a slide at the end more as a reminder to the board of possible directions that we can take. What are our options when we have a school that's above capacity? These are not recommendations. This is simply a reminder as to what is possible. We can take no immediate action, continue to monitor, which is pretty much where we are with the schools of interest. We can move mobile classrooms to a campus, keeping in mind that mobile classrooms do add to instructional space, but they do not add to core space. We have the option of capping enrollment, which UCPS has done in the past. We can build additional classrooms and/or schools. Of course, that takes several years at a minimum in order to get approval for funding and purchasing of land if necessary and going through the capital process, et cetera. So that's a long-term solution, and it takes several years before we see any benefit. And the final option is we can review boundaries. And we've discussed this before. In fact, the board has done this before. We can move unbuilt developments that are in planning where no land parcels have been purchased as yet. And as a last option, we also have the ability to move existing developments. So that's a very quick run through, and there's an awful lot of data there. So I would open it up to questions from the committee.
So I'll kick off a question for you. Looking at these charts, we hear comments from the community quite often here lately that we need to build a new school. We need to build more schools. With your deep knowledge in all of this, do you think we need a new elementary school? Because I'm looking at Antioch, Kensington, Wesley Chapel, So we have an elementary issue here that doesn't start to drop in the next 2 to 3 years, whereas some of the high schools and middle schools, the bubble is occurring now. Except for like Marvin Ridge High School, it's going to be a few years before theirs starts dropping. Cuthbertson High School may be in the same boat. But my question is with your knowledge and your presentation today, one, do you think we need to build a new elementary school, middle school, or high school? And yes or no?
I really wasn't prepared to give an actual recommendation this morning. However, off the cuff, my personal feeling, no, we do not need to build additional schools.
Okay, so that's been my response to the community when we've gotten emails or phone calls, but you know this data a whole lot better than we do. But it is alarming when you see Antioch, Kensington, and Wesley Chapel with no end in sight.
But if you look at Newtown, Marvin, and Sandy Ridge and Rayview, they're declining.
Right.
So there's capacity at elementary schools in that area, just not the ones that they're going to right now. So Newtown, it's interesting to see Newtown go below its numbers. I know Sandy Ridge is, and Rayview is, and Marvin Elementary on this, it's on here as well, that shows that in a year or two, it's going to be declining as well.
And that's why I wanted to share the other options, is because a lot of times folks in general will see a school that gets overcrowded and, oh my goodness, we need to build a new school. Well, we've got various other options that we can look at before we get into the capital intensive brick and mortar building.
The Marvin Ridge High School forecast, is that including that the IB option is being opened at CATA? Like, is that taking away from those numbers?
No, we've not specifically analyzed for the change in the IB.
And the schools that you have to keep an eye on, are those principals aware that if they need MCRs, they can come and talk about that?
Yes, in fact, we've had numerous conversations with various principals.
I know a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, we were selling a lot of our inventory of MCRs. Did we hold a certain percentage, or are all those already allocated where they need to be? Or do we still have some that we can pull from?
We have plenty from which we can pull.
Can we get an updated report about the number of MCRs at each school? Because I'm pretty sure that like Marvin Ridge High School doesn't have any MCRs. Marvin Ridge Middle School, does it have any? Cuthbertson High School? Weddington? Okay, thank you.
Is there any particular reason why we haven't moved MCRs to those schools looking at these charts? Oh, and maybe that should go to Dave, or to anyone, but has there been a conversation about moving MCRs to take care of this?
So we have moved 3 mobile units, so 2 to Kensington, and those are, oh, okay. So certainly at high school, actually, I just did receive my first question, about that, and that was just a couple weeks ago. So certainly we can open that up. But what we do try to do is there's cost associated with it.
Right.
And we do want to look and make sure that the schools are really being efficiently used, before we do move them. So it's easy to ask for the mobiles, and it's, but there is, like I said, there's a cost associated with it. It takes an incredible amount of time. You wouldn't imagine how long it takes, but it takes way longer than it should.
It's about 6 months, right? Because that's when Kensington
Right.
theirs took about 6 months to get it.
So who is working with the Cuthbertson, Marvin, Weddington Antioch, Kensington, who's working with those principals to go through and see, is it our directors? Is it facilities? Are those conversations happening to make sure that what they do have is being used efficiently and correct it now?
It's a combination. So from facilities, yes, facilities is involved. Don and I have met with principals before, and also on an instructional side and staffing side. The school performance officers, do look at that also. And even with Kensington, you may remember, last year and Antioch, we went through an effort, again, central office effort, to look at the programs and did it make sense to relocate programs?
For example, we moved pre-K out of Kensington so that we would have some more room to open some classrooms. I think we moved it to Sandy Ridge because that has capacity at it. So, and I would like to say too, with Antioch, Wesley Chapel, and Kensington, there are some new subdivisions and that haven't been sold yet or anything. And that's what we've been doing over the couple years of moving subdivisions if we need to before people buy lots in the subdivision. So next month, can you come back and we can have a conversation about what we could move into where? I know Weddington Elementary is finally got below or at least at 100%. We can talk about that. I mean, but I would like to have a good conversation, and I know you can do that.
Absolutely. We've got several subdivisions that we would be willing to bring up before.
Okay,
the
so
board.
I would like to see that on the agenda for action next time, so we can have a conversation about where to go.
And that would really blend in well with the CIP request.
Yep. And so, Don, as always, this information is phenomenal, and we're so fortunate that you keep track of all of this for us. On the options page, I would add a bullet for programming or programs, just as a reminder that was a recommendation from Dr. McKibben, that, when we're trying to resolve these issues, and because we do have thousands of seats that are open in different areas of the county, I think it's very important too, when you come back next month, bring back that spreadsheet that shows how many empty seats we have. We have the elementary schools, empty seats, then the middle schools, the high schools. That is a really, really good document that we have that I believe would help the public understand how many available seats we have and why we feel like there are options available without taking out a 30-year loan or whatever, or a bond and increase taxes just to build new schools that would just take care of a 5-year plan.
Right.
So I think add programs, because that's, Dr. McKibben really hit hard on that. And have that spreadsheet too, so we can see where the available seats are.
And to add on to your programming thing, there are some schools that have programming, let's say DLI, but they're not going to be able to allow students to come to the DLI program if the school is at capacity or more. So we have to make sure that that's not happening. And that's it. I don't love saying that, but I think it has to happen so that we don't keep getting bigger when we're already there. And I'm talking about Kensington in particular.
I would agree with that 100%, and maybe even use the same percentile that we use for school choice, which is 85%. If those schools are above 85%, then no one out of cluster can go to that school.
That sounds good, Ms. May. You were
So is it no one out of cluster or just within that school?
No one out of that cluster can apply to go to the programming at that school if it's above 85%.
But would that mean like that a Weddington Elementary student could apply to go to Antioch because
No.
they're in the same cluster?
It should be about the elementary school.
Yeah,
That's what you.
Yeah, the elementary school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then I just wanted to double check. You said Kensington got how many MCRs? 2. Okay, that's what I thought.
We were getting 3.
There's a third mobile classroom that's being moved, and that's going to Antioch. So 2 to Kensington, 1 to Antioch. So it's 3 total.
Okay. I thought 3 was going to.
Yeah, if we have so many on hand, how did we get, what, I mean, could we have done 3 at Kensington and 1 at Antioch?
We
Oh.
are maxed out at
Okay.
Kensington, and that's a whole subject, and we can.
We talked about
Yeah, and we can spend, we're at a threshold, that if we want to put additional mobiles at Kensington, we're at the bathroom, we have to connect to sewer, the price goes up, the location of the mobiles is not in a good location. But the school is overcrowded, and you can put as many mobiles as you want. It doesn't make the cafeteria bigger. It doesn't make the gym bigger. It doesn't make all of those other spaces. And so, so Kensington needs another solution other than mobiles.
What about an addition?
I would say I would not recommend any building solution at Kensington. We have capacity on adjacent elementary
Okay.
schools.
Sandy Ridge, Rayview, okay. Okay,
Right.
thank you. So we look forward to next meeting. Thank you very much for the information.
Are all of these documents available under facilities? I'm sure they're on board docs.
Yes.
But can you make sure that these reports are on our facilities website or page?
Sure, yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Okay, next up is the East Elementary Replacement Status / Overview.
Yeah, I'll tell you that. Good morning.
Morning.
So we've got some schematic drawings. Mr. Burnett will share those with you, but I just wanted to kind of hit the East Elementary replacement and the Forest Hills, kind of combine those two. And it's on. Do you not hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, I got to swallow it. I'm sorry. I apologize. So I'm going to kind of combine the East Elementary and the Forest Hills schematic and kind of give you an update on where that is, where we are. Mr. Burnett, as you remember, we have been approved to proceed with design. Mr. Burnett's been working with our architect on both of those projects. So I'm going to turn it over to him to just kind of give you an overview. What you have in your packet is a significant amount of information on these schematics. He's going to kind of summarize that. But just going forward, we just want to make sure that we're bringing to this committee what you want to see as a schematic drawing so that we can kind of give you an update as we're going through that process. Forest Hills and East Elementary being the first two. But just welcome after we go through, after Mr. Burnett shares some information with you to see if there's additional information that you would like for us to share with you going forward. So,
And let me ask while Don's sitting at the computer, is there any image that anyone wants to see on schematic designs? And so if there is, we try to put that on.
I can share. My screen is saying join the meeting instead of agenda. So I can't even pull up any of this. I don't know what this, I've never had this happen.
Mine is
Oh, join the meeting.
very slow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really couldn't
You have
pull
to
any
do-
of it up
yeah.
because it was taking too long.
Okay.
So we get to see.
Can you put it up there?
If there's something you wanted to see, I could, speak to a couple slides. In general, though, schematic designs are very fluid. And what you see in board docs is so subject to change. And I was looking at the schematic designs this morning that are in there, and I see so many examples of things that we've already changed and moved on to. So I always hesitate to put that kind of information out because people may see something, an image, and think that's what it is and that's what they're expecting to see, not knowing that it's definitely subject to change.
Well,
Is it,
oh no, you go ahead.
is it 2-story, the whole thing?
Yes, both East Elementary School and Forest Hills High Schools are proposed as 2-story schools. East Elementary School is going to be built on the same campus as the existing East Elementary School. So we knew going into it that we had to go 2 stories, number one, because it's a 10-acre site, very tight site for an elementary school. We also have an existing school, on that site to build the new school, which is going to go in the back where the field is makes it necessary for us to go 2 stories. What we do intend to do is to provide on-site parking and on-site stacking for morning drop off and afternoon pickup. It is an urban site, and so we typically do not expect to be able to accommodate all of the traffic. We do have to work through the city of Monroe, the NCDOT and MSTA folks on that, and that's a negotiation. So we will see how that goes.
It'll still front to Elizabeth?
Yes.
Avenue. Okay, so right now, at certain times of the day, it only goes one way, right?
Correct.
Is that,
That's,
so
yeah.
that helps, right?
That was a step that they did to really help that school, all the traffic issues that they had during those times. Whether that's going to be necessary in the future remains to be seen. I kind of doubt it, but that's something we'll be able to look at. Don, can you pull it up, the schematic design? And if you would do east first.
Dave, I'm jumping way ahead out there, but what's your thought on when the new building is built at East, what happens to the current campus?
So the sequencing of the work would be that we would build the new school, move into the new school, then do asbestos abatements, other environmental work, and tear down the existing school. Then that area would then be changed to fields and to parking and circulation.
So it's a flip.
Yes.
It's a flip design. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to probably have some parking struggles for a little while that demolition's going on. So we're going to have some.
So Don, if you could
Don, I
go
think
to
it's 26.
L-101, if you could go to L-101, page 15 on the, we'll do the site first. Appreciate your help on this, Don. All right, so what you see is hopefully you all can see that. That's the existing site and existing survey. So Don, if you'd go to 23. That might be a little bit easier to tell. The shaded in portion of is the existing school. And that's about 82,000 square feet. And the new footprint is about total of 83,000 square feet. So you see the economy of going two-story on that. The new school is down at the bottom of the page. And that shows you, really, it is a very tight site. That's the worst case scenario. It's as things are being built and before the existing school is demolished. Don, if you'd go to 22, this might be a little bit different than I have. Let's try 5. Just go pan down. Okay, so this is one version of what the new school would look like with circulation and parking patterns. We have actually moved on from this, but we hope to. Again, this is a negotiation with those folks that I mentioned before, as far as how the bus parking is going to be. But what you'll see is that top rectangle is a field, and then the school's down at the bottom of the page. Playground is at far left, and that remains. And Don, if you go down one more and see if we can. This is another version of circulation, trying to be and stacking, trying to accommodate that on site. We really didn't like that too much because it's too much asphalt and it takes up our field and it's just not a very attractive image. I'm sorry? Yeah. Like I said, we moved on from that one, and hopefully we moved on from the one I just showed you, because we do have another plan, which is a much more green, meaning much more landscaping opportunities and field opportunities. Don, if you'd go to page, what I show is page 40, and hopefully they are the same. Go down a couple more. Keep going. Okay. That's how we're looking at the moment. Again, this is very conceptual, and what you see on at the top image, far right is kindergarten and pre-K. In the middle wing is the two-story wing, which is first grade, second grade on the bottom floors, third, fourth, and fifth on the second floor. Working the way towards us, that's the admin, and that's where dining is going to be in the gymnasium. And
This seems like a very, very large school design for such a tiny school. Can you talk capacity or enrollments? Because on the screen, it looks like a high school.
okay. And actually, the thing that's hard to imagine, hard to grasp is that the existing school is 82,000 square feet. This one's 83,000 square feet. This is for more students. So it's a more efficient layout. So it's nice. Again, our circulation, we've stacked. So we have a smaller footprint, than what we had before. As far as capacity, we were looking at 90 students for pre-K. And I believe it's 520 for K-5 for a total of in the 600 plus range. I think I got that number wrong, but it's I think we have a core capacity of 700 students. So to answer your question.
Putting pre-K from Walter Pickett Ed into,
Correct.
well, yes,
Yeah.
into it as well.
Yeah, it would be those students that are in the East Elementary School attendance zone is what we're, is the concept.
So we currently have 388 students at East Elementary.
If that's what that says. yes.
And so we currently have 388 students at East. And tell me again how many this design is for?
So we're going to be adding 90
Pre-K.
students in pre-K.
So let's call it 488 students. And this design is for,
Yeah, the core capacity, I believe, is up to 700 students. That's dining and gym and things like that, media center.
so if we round up to 500,
I think, yeah, and I'd have to look, but I think
Then-
our number is more like for actual student capacity. I think it was 620, but I'd have to look.
okay. So even if we round up, I just want to confirm that we're not going to have, that we're not building too big like we did at Fairview. Because Fairview was always predicted to be low. And then I believe decisions long before we were ever around, they went big.
Right.
And now we've had trouble filling Fairview Elementary. So I just want to verify, while we're in the concept stage, because we don't want to continue having elementary schools or any school that's at, 50 or 60% capacity. So I just want to confirm while we're in the concept stage, does it really have to be 700?
Okay.
Just a question.
How many
Yeah.
classes are we talking from Walter Pickett Ed Center? And how many kids are in each of those classes?
I'd say it's 90 kids, so divide that by 18. Should be the number for pre-K.
So I just rounded it up to 100.
So it would only be 100 students.
So that would put you at 488.
Is there a max on the number of pre-K that we can have there? Because of the guidelines, the federal guidelines for pre-K, or we could have more, not just within the boundary of East?
There isn't a maximum, other than, site issues and things like that, and transportation.
But I mean, if
Some of
we
the
have a wait
operational
list
issues.
for pre-K, then it would be nice to add more pre-K for Union County if we have the space. And then my other question would be, since it's a Title I school, are we taking into account the class allotments for Title I? Because even though it looks like it's built for more, then it actually wouldn't be because it's smaller class sizes.
And that's an excellent point. And we could look at the number of classrooms and things like that. I didn't actually expect you to want to get into that kind of detail. But hold on a second. trying to pull up the narrative. And that's also, again, as we do the 2x2s for the CIP, I can come back with that information.
So I guess, in closing, I would just ask to have that conversation while we're still in the concept stage. If we think we're going to be around 500 or 600, being very, very generous and rounding up, is there a cost savings? If there's not a cost savings, then just, I would like to know.
Right.
So I think that's something we can talk about in
Yeah.
2x2s for the CIP,
Yeah.
and you can have answers
Yeah,
for that.
and sorry that I haven't covered this appropriately. We have met with the school, with the principals, with central office folks, with all the departments, and looked at the capacities and those things, and looked at the number of classrooms. So we really feel good about that. And like I said, I apologize. I just not coming up with that number.
So I just want to confirm, would you like us to investigate further the additional pre-K to make up the delta in that capacity?
It has not been brought to the board,
Okay.
the request to increase pre-K or to grow that program. So that's one question. But again, just because we have had to deal with the repercussions and unintended consequences of decisions that were made 15 years ago with Fairview Elementary, and then leaving that school at like 56% capacity, I just don't want to make the same mistakes again and again. So I thought it was a fair question to
I think
ask
we
it.
should look at it right now.
It's a good question.
Is the school too big for right now? Well, we're going to have in a minute a conversation, is Forest Hills big enough? So I think it's just a conversation about where we're going to hit, given that there's 400,
Yeah.
So given that there's only less than 400 kids in East right now, adding to, we have to look at McKibben's report too. I don't think he had it going down, or it was stable the whole time, wasn't it? It was fairly stable. That's what I thought.
Yeah, so let me mention, and Danny had texted me, and I did get this pulled up. We have the designs for 550 students and a 700 student core. So the 388, plus 90. So we're pretty close. That does allow for some.
550 is the capacity, but the core is bigger, which
Right.
is we
Okay,
like.
that makes a whole lot more
Whole
sense.
lot. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that information. Much better
Yeah.
than than building for 200 invisible students.
Yeah, so again, sorry about that.
Any other questions on East Elementary? If not, we can move on to Forest Hills because our time is tight because there's another meeting right after us.
So Don, if you can bring Forest Hills High School up, and I'll mention that high school also is 2 stories. And again, many of the things that we've looked at have already changed as far as the layout and spaces and proximities and relationships. It currently has a 1,200 student core capacity. And currently they have 800, this is listing 879 students. The site, we did acquire the additional acreage, so the school's going to be located on that back property that we just acquired. We are locating the school next to, as close as we can, to the existing gymnasium. That because that will remain with the high school. That certainly kind of really drives the design on the site. And it feels like we should have a lot of room on that site, but we really don't, because we're going to have the East Union will then move over to the high school and take that space, and we are reserving space for a future elementary school.
Can I ask a question? on the sheet we just got for the enrollments, it says the capacity for Forest Hills is 1448 right now.
Right.
And you said it's a 1200 core capacity?
Right. So as Cropper had looked at the core capacity of Forest Hills High School and the classroom capacity, it's 1448. It's 60% utilized.
So it is
currently.
1448.
That's what Cropper's capacity is,
Okay.
yes.
But you had said 1200?
1,200 is what we're looking at here. And really, there isn't that much difference between 1,200 and 1,500 as we look at our design and we look at our program and we look at some of the spaces we're already accommodating. We're very close in between those two. And we're very close to 1,500.
So why would we not build Forest Hills to be 1,500? And what would the cost difference be?
So there's very little cost difference. As we have analyzed it, we started out with, like I said, with 1,200. But as we looked at the program, at some of the schools' current needs, some of the schools' preferences, for CTE, that really does get us very close to 1,500. So as far as cost difference, right now, we don't think that there is much cost difference, to go to 1,500.
Okay, so I think that during the 2x2s, we should have this conversation, East, Forest Hills, and then the CIP. Because this would be, now is the time, like Ms. Merrill said, now would be the time to do it. I know that Marshville, when we were at East Union, mentioned that they were concerned that it was not going to be big enough. I know that Wingate is building, Mr. Ogrim sent us that information. I know that Marshville has some water and sewer issues, but if that gets fixed, then what's going to happen because it's the bypass, the end of the bypass. So I think it's a conversation we have to have.
Yeah. And if there's any images that you want to see, I was going to look at, Don, if you can pull up what is sheet C400. So as I looked at it this morning, it was page 24 as a PDF. And hopefully these are the same. Is it thinking? Okay.
LS3P, can you remind me some of the projects that they've already done for us?
They have done a great deal of projects. They did the Cuthbertson High School, middle school, that whole prototype, all the way back to Weddington High School. They did the elementary school prototype, which is the Kensington Antioch prototype. So this is the overall site. And if you look down, you'll see at the bottom of the page, that's the area that's being reserved for a future elementary school. And if you can pan back up to the top, you'll see at the top right-hand side is the existing school. We are trying to have the,
Is that on our campus? Is that a roundabout on our campus?
it's a prototype. It's schematic design. Yeah, we haven't got into those kinds of details, but
We don't like them in front of schools, and now we're putting them on the campus of the schools.
everyone jokes that I'm the roundabout expert.
I think you do this just to get a reaction out of me.
Let's go to the next slide. So Don, if you can pull up,
I actually enjoy the joke now.
it's 34. So this is so Don, if you could put the cursor in the middle of the page. Yeah, right there. That's the footprint for the new school. It's 2 stories, and where the cursor is a 2-story section. On the right-hand side of that is the it's single story, but it's high volume spaces. It's gymnasium, cafeteria, auditorium.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I understand why East Elementary is 2 stories, because it is landlocked hugely. I always heard in the past that it was more expensive to build on top because we have to do elevators, we have to do all this kind of stuff. So why are we doing 2 stories for Forest Hills?
So if you look at this plan, you'll see that we are trying to accommodate baseball and softball for the high school. We are trying to accommodate middle school, a multi-purpose baseball / softball field. We'll call it softball. And then there's a practice field. Those are for the middle school. The existing school is to the right. And if you look to the left, we have some more practice fields and then parking.
So what you're saying is that we have a lack of land.
We
So
still-
we're
yeah.
going to go up instead of out
Correct.
because we have to move the baseball field and we have to leave land for the elementary.
Also, class changes will be
That's
quicker with 2-story.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
All right.
Next up is the change order update. Mr. Burnett?
Let me get there. We have 2 change orders, and really one was for $0 because we did use allowances. That was with the CIP project. We did have one change order also with the Sun Valley project, and that's a credit of $39,813.80.
So has the irrigation issues at Sun Valley been fixed at the practice fields? Are we good to go? Or are there still issues with the practice fields?
Hopefully.
Since we
it's-
have the words irrigation repairs, I want to know.
Yeah, so there have been repairs, there have been some things that have been completed there. Is there a future problem? Yeah, of course, we don't know, but I think that we're where we need to be.
How about the natural irrigation on the practice fields where it puddles when it rains?
We're still pursuing that.
We are.
Yeah, that's
What branch?
still ongoing, yeah.
Okay,
And we're
thank
going to
you.
be getting surveyors on site.
Thanks. Okay, surplus. No, all of this is information. Yep.
Just wanted to make sure you didn't need approval to use that money.
No,
from a different pot.
no,
Okay.
that's a credit. Okay, surplus. Anybody have any questions? How about building and zoning permits? Okay. Our next meeting is February 23rd, so we're going to the 4th Wednesday of the month from now on, 9 a.m. PDC. So now let me go to closed session. So I need a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318, 10 and 11 to review minutes from our prior closed session meetings and NCGS 143-318, 11A5 concerning the acquisition of real property.
So moved?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.